All right, if you're grinding the online cash game tables right now, anywhere from 100 NL up to 500 NL, you already know the deal. Playing a solid, theoretically sound baseline, yeah, that's basically just a requirement to survive these days. But in this explainer, we are definitely not here just to survive. We're diving into the advanced, highly exploitative tactics that you need to absolutely crush 200 NL cash games. We're going to break down the exact strategies that top players use to stop just kind of reacting to the table and start actually dictating the action.
So I want you to ask yourself a question. What truly separates a standard regular from an absolute crusher? When the standard theoretical assumptions break down and you're sitting across from imperfect humans who, let's face it, make mistakes, what is the single most counterintuitive thing a winning player does to exploit those leaks? Seriously, just think about that for a second.
Well, here's the wild, startling truth. Against imperfect humans, winning players find their absolute greatest edge by bluffing with the absolute weakest possible holdings in their range. I know, it sounds completely backwards, right? Like, why on earth would you punt your money into the middle with total garbage? But as we'll see, having literally zero equity is exactly what makes a hand the perfect candidate to steal a massive pot.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer. First up, bottom of range bluffing. Second, sizing tells. Third, the metagame story. And finally, the conclusion. Let's jump right in.
Section 1, Bottom of Range Bluffing.
So, in a purely exploitative context, what do we mean by bottom of range? It represents the absolute weakest hands in your specific line that possess zero showdown equity against your opponent's range. Basically, if you check it down, you lose 100% of the time, period. And because you have absolutely no chance to win at showdown, this hand has nothing to lose. That makes it the perfect bluffing candidate, because you're relying purely on fold equity.
Check out this direct quote from our source material. This comes from a high-stakes crusher detailing their actual live thought process. 19 times out of 20, as a general rule, saying that you're going to bluff with the bottom of your range is going to be an excellent starting point. Think about that. 19 times out of 20, I really want to emphasize that frequency. You don't need some massive combo draw to pull the trigger. You just need a hand that is totally dead in the water.
Think about it like this. Contrast the very top of your range with the stone bottom. The top is driven by value and high showdown equity, right? You have the goods, you want calls. The bottom is driven by pure fold equity and zero showdown value, meaning you desperately want folds. The hands in the middle? Well, those are your bluff catchers or marginal value hands. It's the extremes on either end that actually make the big money.
Let's see how this builds into a specific hand narrative. Imagine you're holding ace-jack suited. You call a bet on the flop, and then you call another bet on the turn. By the time you reach the river and the board is completely bricked out for you, your ace-jack is stone bottom. If you check, you're losing to almost everything. But if you turn it into a massive river bluff shove, something magical happens. You unblock the exact hands you want your opponent to fold. You put maximum pressure on hands like ace-king or king-queen. I mean, those hands suddenly hate their lives and want to throw their mouse out the window facing an all-in. Theory assumes the opponent will call with the perfect defense. But in practice, humans overfold these spots. You exploit them by forcing them into an absolute theoretical nightmare.
Moving on to Section 2, Sizing Tells. The 200 NL table isn't just a card game, guys. It's literally a crime scene. And every single bet size leaves a glaring clue. Let's map out some actual opponent inputs and the immediate exploitative reads you should deduce from them. If an opponent uses a small check raise on a dry ace-high flop, the read is that their range is weak. It's telegraphed and severely lacking nutted hands. If they fire a quarter pot turn bet, that range is poorly protected and highly vulnerable to being raised. And if they min raise against your overbet, that's often a committal size that caps their range at a single marginal pair.
When an opponent uses a poor sizing scheme, they are instantly handing over the blueprint to their exact hand strength. They are, as the source text notes, essentially telegraphing his hand and range. They aren't balancing their sizing to protect their weak holdings. They're just clicking the button that feels right for their specific two cards in that exact moment. And honestly, that is a leak we can drive an absolute truck through.
So how do we aggressively punish these capped ranges? Well, you attack those tiny 10% flop bets with aggressive check raises because they simply won't have the goods to defend. You float those quarter pot turn bets with the explicit intention of over-bluffing on future streets. You aggressively multi-barrel them right off the pot when they check but fail to protect their checking range with traps. And hey, if you notice an opponent snap-calling thin river bets, immediately take note and widen your value betting range against them in the future. Make them pay for every single mistake. Section 3, the metagame story.
Remember, single hands do not exist in a vacuum. Everything you do at the table builds a profitable, overarching narrative. Walk through this timeline with me to illustrate a classic metagame setup. In hand 1, you execute a massive 3x pot overbet bluff, and it gets shown to the table. Everyone sees it. Fast forward several orbits later, and your opponent now pursues you as a highly aggressive maniac who is totally capable of wildly overplaying air. Then, the trap is sprung. In the next big pot against this player, you hit the absolute nuts. You use that exact same 3x pot sizing, but this time for a value bet. And because of the crazy story you've told, they pay you off instantly.
This insight from the source perfectly captures the mindset you need. A hand doesn't end the game, right? It's always a continuous story of how he's perceiving you, how you're perceiving him. Every single time the cards are flipped over at Showdown, you are actively manipulating your opponent's future decisions. You aren't just playing your cards anymore. You are literally playing their perception of you.
And that brings us to the golden rule of metagame manipulation. Identify the story your opponent believes about you and do the exact opposite. If they think you're a calling station who physically cannot locate the fold button, then what do? You play tight and happily fold your bluff catchers because they're going to underbluff you. Conversely, if they think you overfold to pressure, you turn into a calling station and pick off their bluffs relentlessly. You just sit back and let them trap themselves in their own assumptions.
Finally, Section 4, our conclusion. We've covered a ton of ground, so let's condense this whole arsenal into immediate, actionable steps. Here is your concrete playbook for your next session. Number 1, identify your absolute weakest hands, the stone bottom of your range, to find the most profitable, high-pressure bluffs. Number 2, exploit sizing tells immediately. When they bet too small or take a weak line, attack their capped ranges without mercy. Number 3, use table history to manipulate the ongoing metagame story. Remember, the game is a continuous narrative. I really want to highlight this number for you. -50 big blinds per 100 hands. That is exactly what it costs you every single time you simply hit the fold button pre-flop. If you are just folding and giving up on thin exploitative edges post-flop, you are actively losing money. We use these aggressive strategies, the bottom-of-range bluffs, attacking sizing mistakes, specifically to fight back against that painful -50 BB win rate and turn it into real profit. So, I'll leave you with this final challenge for the next time you log on to Grind. Are you going to stay in your standard theoretical shell, playing predictably and just hoping the cards fall your way? Or are you going to break out, start reading their sizing, bluffing the absolute bottom of your range, and turning their own expectations against them? The chips are out there waiting. Go get them.